I'll look forward
Good evening, everyone. Let's get started. Nice to see everyone. Thank you for making this time. Welcome to the Chelsea Land Use Committee meeting. My name is Greg Morris, and I'm the co-chair of Chelsea Land Use Committee, which meets monthly. This is our November meeting. Manhattan Community Board 4 has a hybrid meeting policy that can be found on our website. Just by way of note, our co-chair, Carrie Keenan, is unavailable for this meeting, but she will rejoin us in December. We did talk about this meeting in advance. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining by Zoom must leave their cameras on. Thank you so much for doing that. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is being recorded. There are 2 items on tonight's agenda. And as a reminder, let's treat each other with respect and decorum. If there are disruptions that affect participation or interrupt meeting business, we will call a temporary recess. Lastly, let's be cognizant of time, although it may not hold in this particular case. We must exit this particular location at 9 p.m. I don't expect that we will hit that marker today, but it's good to know. It's good to see you all. Welcome. And I'm grateful to be with you today. Once again, my name is Greg Morris, and I am the co-chair of the Chelsea Land Use. I just want to note 1 or 2 things before we jump into tonight's agenda. Just as a reminder, I took responsibility for sitting as co-chair not so long ago, so I'm still getting to know everybody and to be as supportive as engaged as I can possibly be in addressing all the different issues that are coming to light, all the different issues that we're dealing with, and all of what's ahead. And I say that specifically at this particular moment because while this agenda is very short, it is highly likely we will not see an agenda this short again, as there are a number of projects, experiences, and other expectations that this committee will be taking on. And to my committee members, I look forward to working with you on all of these different projects and expectations. To the community members that are here now, it's great to see you. Welcome. It's great to have you. We're thankful for you. We look forward to working with you. And again, good evening. It's great to see everyone here. On that note, let's jump into the meeting proper. We have a presentation. Is our person on?
Yes, they're on.
Awesome. Okay. This is an amendment to the retail storefront master plan. It's related to 655 6th Avenue. That is our opening agenda item. And we have someone online, Robert Bianco, architect. Are you available now? There you are.
Hello, yes, I'm available.
Yours.
Great. Will I be sharing the screen myself or?
You can, Robert.
Okay, great.
Is there anybody else from your team that needs to be brought over?
No, I think someone is watching, but I will be presenting.
Okay. If you're comfortable on screen, then that's fine.
Okay, great. We'll do.
And to everybody who's in the room, please be aware, normally we have mics. There are no mics. The room is mic'd, so it is picking up sound wherever you are. So just keep in mind that this is a different circumstance than normal where we're not going to be passing mics, but the room is mic'd. So once again, just be mindful of that as we go forward. Robert, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to present. I am Robert Bianco. I'm with PKSB Architects. I'm representing tonight the owners of the retail condo portion of 655 6th Avenue, located in the Ladies Mile Historic District. As was already stated, this is an application to amend a previously approved master plan, which is in effect for storefront alterations and retail signage at the ground floor storefronts all along 6th Avenue and on the side streets, 20th and 21st Streets. The building is the Hugh O'Neill building located on the west side of 6th Avenue in the Ladies Mile Historic District. And this is a building typical to the district, a large department store, was built in 1887. Subsequently, upper floors were altered and converted to office and later to loft residences, but the ground floor has always maintained a strong retail presence. So all of the, or most of the storefront work that was approved under the master plan has been implemented. This is an existing photo along 6th Avenue. All of the storefront that you see is modern infill, which was altered somewhere between 2011, and 2013, around there. The master plan was approved in 2008. There were a couple of small minor amendments, but all of the storefront work has been completed. So this application is just focusing on the signage for the retail stores. Looking a little bit closer at the storefronts along 6th Avenue, what was approved under the original master plan for signage was internally illuminated sign boxes behind the transom glass at every window bay. Now, some of the retailers have opted not to utilize every single transom window, and a couple of the retail spaces at the north end of the building are currently vacant, but a new tenant will be moving in soon. And I'll go back to the straight-on view from across 6th Avenue, looking back at the building. Here you can see the signage is somewhat well visible, but once you are actually on the sidewalk close to the building, walking north or walking south, you can see there are some visibility issues, and tenants who have come into the building have all asked, what can we do to make this visibility a little bit better? Some existing photos of the side streets. This on the left-hand side is 21st Street. Now, this is the one portion, I will point out, this is the one portion that has not been altered under the master plan. These display windows are what existed previous to the master plan approval, but everything else on the building has been altered. And on 20th Street, there's a small portion of modern storefront infill that wraps the corner, and then we transition to smaller windows further down the block. So in looking at, what could we do that's appropriate for the Ladies Mile district, we looked to other large department store buildings that are typical to the district and noted that many of the retailers use a mix of signage behind the glass and signage in front of the building. At the Blick Art Store at 650 6th Avenue, there are internally illuminated letters behind the transom glass, as well as colorful awnings that project beyond the building line. A little bit down the street, where we have more big box retailers, there is a combination, hard to see here with the scaffolding, but there is a combination of signage applied directly to the glass. There's some signage, illuminated signage behind the glass at the ground floors, and above, cutout lettering on rails outside of the windows. Moving over to 5th Avenue, also in the Ladies Mile district, a couple of examples of similar signage to what we are going to be proposing at the CVS on 18th and 5th Avenue, cut out non-illuminated letters on rails mounted to modern storefront infill, and the lettering stands in front of the transom glass. And at the Athleta store, this is actually internally illuminated signage in front of a frosted glass transom. a similar approach at Arc'teryx in the district. We looked at other larger retail installations that are not necessarily in the Ladies Mile district. This is at the Puck building, just outside the Soho district, where the commission did approve halo lit lettering and a logo mounted to a solid backdrop mounted on signage rails. Returning to the Ladies Mile district, this is non-illuminated cutout letters on a solid backing sitting in front of glass. And then the last two precedent examples, another large retail department store in downtown Brooklyn. This is an individual landmark where the commission did approve halo lit letters with a solid backing in front of glass window, and a recent approval at 115 Fifth Avenue, also in the Ladies Mile district, illuminated lettering in front of glass. This is a plan of the current retail subdivision configuration. 6th Avenue is along the bottom of the page. And this is the 6th Avenue elevation. This is what is currently approved under the 2008 master plan. Signage in every transom bay set 18 inches behind the glass, internally illuminated. And what we are proposing is to bring that transom signage outside of the plane of glass to help with the visibility when you're walking up and down the busy sidewalk of 6th Avenue. But since that's moving outboard of the glass, we are proposing to reduce the overall number of signs in the transoms, limiting them to every other bay along 6th Avenue. We would like to maintain the ability for each retailer to get their own, still get one illuminated sign box behind the glass at one display window. So this configuration, the number of illuminated sign boxes is determined by just simply how many retail stores exist currently on this frontage. These are enlarged elevations just to give you a better look at comparing what was previously approved and currently the signage master plan with signage in every bay at the top, and then our proposed amendment to the signage plan would be to reduce the overall number of signs, bring the signage to the exterior. This would be cut out halo lit letters mounted to a solid backdrop so you can get that halo effect, and then the overall assembly would be mounted to signage rails, which would be attached to the storefront, the modern storefront infill. And this is the north portion of 6th Avenue, comparing on top the current approval and on the bottom our proposed amendment. This is the current approval for the side street elevations. On the left is the 21st Street elevation, on the right, the 20th Street. And what we are proposing, I'll jump to the enlarged elevations to give you a better idea of what we're proposing. This is the 21st Street elevation, current approval on top. Again, pulling that signage at the transom outboard of the glass, reducing the overall number, and at this facade there would just be one internally illuminated sign behind one display window on 21st Street. And we are including at every entrance to a retail store the ability to do vinyl applied signage, which would comply with all of the landmarks rules. and along 20th Street. So the south elevation, and moving the transom signage outboard of the glass, trying to keep it all as close to the corner as possible, and just one sign box, illuminated sign behind the glass at 20th Street. This is a typical elevation of a typical storefront, showing both single line and double line signage, depending on the store name. And in the plan, you can see the illuminated sign box would be set behind the glazing. This is a photo montage of that same typical storefront bay, showing what is currently approved with signs at every transom versus our proposed modification, reducing that signage at the transom just to be, in this case, above the storefront entrance, and maintaining the ability to have still one illuminated sign behind the display window, and then landmarks approved or landmarks appropriate signage at the doors. And this is a rendering of a 3D depiction of the single line versus the double line text. And then looking at that in the more oblique view, where you can see the visibility is a little trickier here. So by pulling the signage to outboard of the glass, we're able to have the signs at the transom all be in the same plane. Currently, some of the sign boxes get pushed even further back into the retail space because the entrance doors are recessed. But in the proposed, we would keep that all out at the basically aligned with the cast iron columns. And then just showing single line versus double line. Typical detail for the rail mounted signage, we're proposing maximum 24-inch high halo lit letters for the single line of text, and 2 lines of 12-inch letters if it's a double line of text. This would all be, the halo lit letters would be mounted to a solid backing, which would be applied to the signage rails attached to the storefront, not to the cast iron. And the overall projection is about a little less than 4 inches past the face of the cast iron column.
Yeah.
And this is the sign type that would be an internally illuminated sign, again, set 18 inches behind the glass. This is a section drawing with the rail mounted signage at the top, and then the internally illuminated sign box at the display window 18 inches back. And lastly, the typical entry door signage would be vinyl applied, not exceeding the landmarks rules for maximum coverage of the glazing. And just end again on this 3D depiction. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
Questions committee at this point specific to the amendment and the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Robert. Looking at,
Yeah.
I'm Dave Holoka.
Thanks.
Looking at the image that you're showing now, what's the material of the sign above the door?
What is I'm sorry?
Material of the sign above the door?
They would be metal halo lit letters, metal cutout letters, and then on metal backing.
And what is the profile of the rails? How many inches?
The dimension, like the cross section? Is that the question?
Yes.
It's about, I believe, like an inch, oh, one inch by 1 inch. Oh, no, sorry, 1.5 by 1.5 inches.
Okay, so you'll carry the electric through there,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
And it will pass storefront framing. It won't attach to the cast iron,
It
correct?
will not attach to the cast iron, correct?
And can you tell us why the old master plan is no longer adequate?
It's really the visibility. If you try to go back to that existing image, looking north and south. It's, wonder if I can zoom in. This is an image looking south, and you can see the Just Salad signage is probably the most visible. However, it was installed a little bit closer to the glass than the master plan allows. And also you really cannot see the signage above the door because the doors are recessed, and the master plan approval allows for it's a blanket approval for all signage to be 18 inches behind the glass. So if it's 18 inches behind the display window, it's 30, almost 36 inches behind the cast iron column once you're at the recessed doors. So you're seeing kind of the edge of signage above the doors, but you're not really seeing the maximum amount. And you can even see a little bit at the Jennifer Furniture store. It's really hard to see anything here. You're seeing kind of the edge of an R, but you're not really seeing what the retailers need to get that foot traffic.
Did you consider using blade signs for visibility attached to non-sensitive parts of the facade or sections of cast iron?
Yeah, well, we thought about blade signs, but it's really all cast iron. It's cast iron or the modern infill. So a blade sign would have to be attached to the storefront mullions, and then would project quite a bit beyond.
Are all of the signage examples that you showed within historic districts?
Yes, yeah, they are, or individual landmarks.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a
Go
quick,
ahead.
yeah, I have a quick question.
Introduce yourself first.
My name is Viren Brambert. The question is about what is the height of the new signage? And how does that compare to what you used to have before? So there are two things happening, right? You're sort of putting it forward instead of being recessed, but you're also increasing the height of it. Is that something that's within the sort of guidelines?
Oh, the height of the lettering itself.
Yes.
Yes, the lettering is increasing to 24 inches. Yes.
Is that sort of following guidelines that the city has?
That's we're going to a public hearing for this, so we are asking for something that's outside of the landmarks rules. I think the landmarks rules do allow up to 18-inch high letters. We're asking for 24-inch just because it's sort of maintaining a similar proportion to the sign boxes that were previously approved.
Kind of twofold.
This is jumping around a bit, sorry.
Sorry, Robert, we were talking at the same time. There are two things going on. Landmark has its own sort of restrictions, but the city restrictions also exist. So I think you should check both. And if you're going for 24 inches high compared to 18 inches, that's something that you should sort of let the committee know as well, because I think it's an important factor in terms of how we sort of view that.
Well, the zoning guidelines limit the height, the overall height above the sidewalk that the signage can be, and then the restriction is more of a square footage restriction. So we would have to be within the maximum allowed square feet for the total number of signs, which zoning typically allows much more than what landmarks would ever allow. But in terms of the height above the sidewalk, it's basically in the same line as what's currently approved. We're maintaining signage within the transom. So the height above the sidewalk doesn't change.
And one last question, you're not actually moving the storefront any which way, right? You sort of.
Correct. No changes to the store.
Hi, Inga Ivchenko. I have a question about the signage, the illuminated signage that are going on the side streets.
Mm-hmm.
Those tend to be very bright at night, even if you're a number of stories above it. I don't know if we do anything to keep those off when the store is closed. Doesn't disturb residents. We have a lot of light pollution in the city, and
if it's blue light, it's poison. Blue light
I
is
think that
poison.
if the side street lighting could be
Definitely.
turned off
But it
when the
is-
store is closed,
Mm-hmm.
it's helpful to anyone that lives on those blocks.
Sure.
Pamela.
And I just want to clarify this, that what we're proposing is it's indirect, so you will not see the light source. You'll see kind of the glow around the light. So
It's even better with no glow at night. It should be dark.
yeah. But I just wanted to make that clear.
Be considered.
Sure.
Next up, go ahead.
Are you looking at me? I thank you, Robert.
Sure.
I'm gonna go a step beyond Inga's comment about the crosstown streets, which have over the last 20 or 30 years become much more residential than commercial spaces. And I see that on the 20th Street side, only one window is accessible for signage, so it's changing signage. But on the 21st Street side, it's the whole strip, and it's immediately before the beautiful dogwood trees and burial ground that is the gem in our neighborhood. It's a place of respite for everyone. I think what Inga says about evening lighting in that area would be highly insensitive. And I would prefer to see that elevation, the 21st Street side, left alone. It's perfectly visible. There's no issue about entry doors or anything except immediately in the corner. And I think it would be respectful to the community to look at it that way. At the main entrance, I understand the need to bring the signage forward. I think 24 inches is too much. It's too tall for the lettering. I admire what Aritzia has done further down. That's the same process, I believe, is used there that you're proposing, but it's very elegant. It's discreet, it's elegant, and it's very visible. If your signage could look more like that, I'd be very happy about that. But that's at the main entry. I don't see a need to go beyond that for the signage on either side because it's already readily visible from the street, both across the street on the other side of 6th Avenue and also up and down the sidewalk on the west side of 6th Avenue. So I think that those are my comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify some things, Landmarks does have guidelines for signage that staff can approve. It doesn't need to go to a full board meeting. And even though you're planning to go to full board and overriding that, those guidelines still make sense as a standard. And they do limit the height of lettering to 18 inches. They don't allow what's called a sign panel, which is what I would call the rectangular element behind your halo lit lettering at the transom level. They don't allow those in what they call sign bands, which is like the transom level that you see in the upper image here with the old master plan. And Landmarks is pretty vehemently against self-illuminated letters, especially on the outside of a building. You're not doing that, but it's almost like you're creating a similar effect by creating this new rectangular field that will be illuminated from behind the floating letters. Usually, Landmarks only allows the floating halo lit letters if the light falls on the facade of the building. So it doesn't read as kind of a boxy sign, and the whole thing is more transparent and elegant. And Jesse, Odin?
Yes.
Could I ask you to call up the image that I sent you just before coming to the meeting? There's another example similar to the Teresa one that Pamela mentioned that I think we might look at. And while Jesse's bringing that up, you know, I can't help commenting that I would regret losing the old master plan, the one that's shown in the upper image, because it's simply much more coherent, and the transom acts kind of as a container for the signage. What you're doing is both up and down and kind of inside and outside. And the element that comes outside at the transom level, yeah, this is the image. It's very elegant. It's simply the cutout letters on a rail. There's no illumination, but they're legible during the day because they're in daylight. And at night, the lights are on inside and they stand out in silhouette. So they're legible all the time. The opposite of the flashing hotel sign from the film noir that Landmarks is terrified of, obviously. And, you know, also this is just two components. It's the rail, it's the elegant cutout letters. And what you're showing has a rail, it's got the cutout letters, it's got
The
the
backdrop.
rectangular back panel, it sits forward. It feels very applied, almost like the Marshalls and TJ Maxx signs, which I think are kind of inappropriate. So we've got a few things going on. One is the kind of violation of the 18-inch height. The fact that instead of a kind of quiet, continuous, integrated sign band, and all of the tenants are going to have different logo types and their signs are going to be different. So the idea of containing them, say, within the transom level is to give that some coherence nonetheless, but now we're really sort of all over the place. And it feels to me like the signage that you're proposing over the doors kind of clots up. It's too many elements and it's kind of distracting. So I think what I would do is make a motion to come up with a different design that's more in keeping with what Landmarks says in its staff guidelines. It doesn't have to be identical. Limits the lettering to an 18-inch height, and isn't all kind of in and out and up and down. Anything you'd like to add to that, Pamela?
Yeah. Just to ask people to recognize that the Hugh O'Neill building is pretty much a linchpin on in the Ladies Mile there on 6th Avenue. And it's less tampered with than most of the other department store buildings along the way of 5th and 6th. And I think we should make every effort to keep it as uncluttered and as untampered with as possible.
I agree.
We see if there's any other questions or comments from committee members in the room.
You know,
Can I make one?
Let's-
Just in terms of, I mean, David, I think your concept of having one band with freestanding letters backlit from the inside of the store through the transom window does make a lot of sense. And if that's the direction we want to go, I think I'd be good with that. The idea though of turning off the lights if they go to the other one, I know in my neighborhood, darker streets are not as safe. And so the light is actually better for the community than the glow that impacts a few residents in their apartments. So I would urge us to not say turn off the lights, well, for public safety reasons. But I think if we go to the other model of backlit freestanding letters through the transom light, and a little bit smaller at 18 inches rather than 24, I think that I can.
So illuminated from behind the glass.
Yeah, like the transom window, the light from inside the store lights up the letters on a freestanding rail, and the letters are restricted to 18 inches within LPC guidelines. I think that's a reasonable position.
Okay, I think I might also add that if a way of attaching blade signs to the existing non-historic storefronts or the cast iron, where the cast iron is dead flat, we might be open to that to give more legibility to the signage up and down the street. Last meeting, we talked about avoiding putting holes into granite and limestone because it's not reversible. But in the case of the cast iron, it can be filled. The cast iron is always painted anyway and ground smooth. So I would say that that is reversible. We might include that in our letter.
Any other comments, questions from committee members in person? Any comments or questions from committee members online? Any comments or questions from the public on the amendment?
This seems like a waste of time.
I second,
That's my.
I don't hear any
Just
anything specific to the amendment.
What,
So
just
at
one
this point-
thing about the light on
Yeah.
the side streets. I think these side streets are already lit. I think that's enough. I don't think we need to throw extra light in there for safety.
So Inga, if we're going with the backlit transom windows, then my objection to that is, doesn't matter.
Well, I don't think the idea is to put like spotlights.
No. I
Transom
think
lighting.
what we're
It's
suggesting
usually
is,
the ambient light within the store as it falls on the ceiling.
Yeah.
correct.
You see the
And when
lettering.
the
in
store's
silhouette
closed, the
again.
lights are turned off, so it's a moot point.
At this point, we'll make a motion. I think we can close
You
the
may.
discussion.
yeah,
Point.
you already made a motion, right?
Yes.
I second his motion with Paul's change about the lighting.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Any P&Es? Count, Jesse? You see that?
That was unanimous. Yeah.
And the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, we'll
Thank
talk
you,
about
Robert.
the letter separately. Yeah, we'll.
Thank you, David.
Thanks. David, will you help us produce the letter for that? I appreciate that very much. Thank you, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to old/new business at this point. I want to start that by communicating a couple of updates on behalf of the committee. There have been a number of different convenings that have taken place since our last meeting. So since the last Chelsea Land Use Committee meeting, related to, again, projects and other issues, complexities within this particular district. I want to highlight those just to kind of talk through some of those different pieces, just to kind of put everybody on the same page as to where we are at this moment related to those particular items. And at that point, then if there's any other additional items, we'll cover that, and then we'll go to public session. Is that fair? So just wanted to communicate the following items that took place since our last meeting. At the end of October, the members of the Chelsea Land Use Committee and others met with DCP for a briefing on Midtown South redevelopment project. There was a public info session as well. There's a draft scope of work in place, and I believe there's some other additional items related to that project coming to the floor in the near future. This is the Midtown South redevelopment project. There's a lot to be covered and discussed related to that particular project and the plans for that project. We're not in a position at this moment during the course of this meeting to dig into that, but you can expect moving forward, that will be an agenda item that this committee will be engaged in.
I don't know rezoning.
Does anyone want to fill that in on that? I mean, does other people want to communicate on that?
No, I think that the Midtown South mixed use rezoning is targeting converting manufacturing to residential. The nuances are issues we have to work on. The rezoning of 4 quadrants within Midtown South.
And we'll bring that as part of future committee.
It'll be future meeting soon.
Thank you, thank you. At the end of October, October 28th, members of the community board were invited to a meeting with NYCHA and related and elected officials. This was in response to the letter that was drafted and submitted by this
vindictive letter.
particular committee to discuss issues related to the project that we discussed at that during the July meeting.
Ashamed of yourselves.
At that time, the attendees at the meeting, which included elected officials, NYCHA and related presented a presentation at that time
Racketeering,
to discuss what it was and what it is that they wanted to put forward since
racketeering,
July in response to our communication to them.
gang stalking.
Couple of items to say on this, at this particular moment. We think the best strategy at this point is
Execution.
for the related and NYCHA teams to present
No.
at our December Blue meeting, at our December Chelsea Land Use meeting, to walk through that presentation with this body, so that they can both share, explain, and communicate what it was that they are thinking about, sort of the direction that this is headed.
What about the residents?
That meeting, by the way, took
84%
place
voted to keep.
prior to
And you ignore us.
the NYCHA board meeting on October 30th.
You're weird and shameful.
Couple of different things to note at this point. Those who were in attendance at that particular meeting have started to draft a response in terms of what it is that we think we heard at that meeting, what it is that we are not yet has been responded to by NYCHA and related to this project in relation to the letter that we submitted to them in July.
You should be in jail.
Again, it is the expectation of this particular body
You will
that
be.
there will be a presentation from related in NYCHA in December to walk through that presentation during a Chelsea Land Use Committee meeting. Yes,
Okay, in the Dropbox with these two financing overview
that's correct.
and bridge plan, is this their presentation?
That was.
And is this what they're gonna talk about in December?
It is the expectation that they will walk through those items at the December meeting. And I expect that there are going to be a lot of questions.
I have a
Couple of notes, actually, I'm sorry, let me just finish the communication here. Couple things. In relation to that particular communication that was shared and what the committee members have seen, I think it's important for us to capture a lot of the questions and reactions that we have in advance of that December meeting. So that at the December meeting, it's expected that NYCHA and related can respond to things that we are already thinking about. So again, that's the intent, to be able to have as constructive of a meeting as we think we can during the course of that time with them. Because based on what you have seen, you have questions. We want to pose those questions in advance so that they are presumably answering things that we have not
The
gotten.
residents answer the questions. You ask us.
Again, it's
For
during
what?
public session.
You ignore us.
Can you let me know
Public
when I
session is coming up shortly. That'll be during
We're public, babes. We're public.
Just a quick
What
question.
do you
Was
think we are in
the
another
NYCHA
country?
meeting with the CLU committee or was it board-wide committee
I'm
members?
sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
The meeting that you had with NYCHA, was it only with the CLU committee members or were the members from the entire?
There were, I think it was the land use chairs.
The Chelsea NYCHA working group from the.
Sorry, Chelsea, forgive me. That's me not knowing the language.
You are not forgiven.
Chelsea,
We will never
land use,
forgive you.
Chelsea NYCHA working.
We
group.
will,
Land
we
use
won't
chairs.
forgive you, babes.
Land use chairs.
Or you're,
Chelsea,
really,
And the housing resources.
you'll never be
So
safe.
only the co-chairs of the other
Yes,
committee.
the co-chairs and the chair of the board, right.
So again, I want to just reiterate the idea that I want to call on this committee,
Are you gang stalking?
and Betty, we'll come to you in 1 second. The expectation on this particular committee to come to the table with its questions in advance, so we can prepare that for NYCHA and related, so that we are aware, so that they have the opportunity to be responsive
Am I a public
to what it is
person?
that's on our
Are you
mind,
harassing
not
me?
give them another opportunity
Have you ever
to
heard
have
of
not
gang
answered questions,
stalking?
or to put us in a situation
CIA
to ask the questions.
operation,
we have.
babes.
Will it be in a bigger room or will it be here, you think?
Nobody cares.
Be determined. I want to, yes, in the room first, and then we'll go online. Go ahead.
The letter that you said that is.
Another gang
you started
stalker.
Drafting, that's not going to go anywhere until after.
That will
we actually-
circulate amongst this committee.
Okay, but we get to meet in December before any kind of response goes out
That's
to them.
That's, yeah, that'll be for us to look at internally,
Right.
and then we'll have the preparation for to be able to share with the NYCHA related people with our set of questions attached to it, so we can go.
When are you gonna ask the residents questions?
So we'll be having another meeting before the formal CLU in December to work on these questions.
I think that most of the work that's gonna have to take place, because we're gonna be dealing with holidays and this meeting's gonna come up pretty quickly, is gonna have to happen somewhat offline. If we need to convene, I think we have to discuss how to make that possible.
Okay, we'll get to Betty. I want to ask.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Betty,
A
apologies.
couple of other quick questions,
Please.
but after Betty or others ask their questions, I have some updates that I'd like to go through over the minutes, if I may, related to my. But, you know, in our June letter to the electeds, we noted the absence of any justification for the increase in the FEC renovation estimate, and our letter ended with a request to hear from the electeds and said it's imperative that we get the missing information described in this letter in order to establish trust in this continuing process. The point of sending the letter to the electeds was to engage them in getting answers, which they themselves should certainly want. I understand Jerry Nadler, Eric Botcher, and Tony Simone attended in person the follow-up meeting that you're talking about. Did they respond to our letter's request or just watch the development team's presentation? Did they demand substantiation for the astronomical renovation estimate?
So again, I think my direct
Because
response
they're
to that at
fake.
this particular moment is, those questions are all valid and reasonable.
They're
I
fake.
think we need to, again, presumably put our response together. Again,
But
this meeting happened because the electeds helped to initiate this. We were present for that. We received a presentation. There remains questions in that regard.
But they didn't question NYCHA, like how could this possibly cross the?
At this stage, I don't know what I can offer in terms of how it was that meeting was actually conducted to its fullest. I specifically focused on, there was a presentation made, we received the presentation, we need to review it, we have questions, we have to bring it in front of NYCHA related, bring it back to this body to discuss.
Okay, and I watched the executive meeting where there was a small recap of the NYCHA meeting, and Carrie said in it, one of the things that I was most pleased about was that they are basically committing to this, whether it's a rezoning or not, whether we have a ULURP or not. So they are working on all contingencies. Did they mention a no demolition contingency?
Again, I think we could just pose that as a question that comes up during the.
It's a question about the meeting that was already had.
I understand. I understand.
What's the answer? Refresh our mind.
Quick question, is it possible for the working groups, that what, you know, the meeting that folks attended, can you give us a little summary so that we know, come prepared in December as to what might have been discussed at that meeting?
Yeah, can we have
We have a
details?
document that has been drafted in response to what took place.
Let's see the document.
That is not yet fully been, completed and finalized
Guys,
by those who are present at the meeting to be circulated to this group. It's expected that will happen shortly. When that does, this group will see that.
snakes
That
in
will
the
be, that will
grass.
serve as your guide.
Snakes
It
in the
might happen
grass.
before the
babes.
next CLU meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, tigers eat snakes.
Can we
Remember that.
go?
We have someone online with a hand up. Betty? Our committee member with a hand up. Betty, go ahead.
Hi, yes, thank you. Yes, some of the concerns that David and Viren are raising, I also have those concerns. That if you had this big meeting, that those of us who were not at the meeting would really appreciate what was discussed and how it was discussed. And I, participated in making this big letter that was oriented towards the elected officials. And so I wondered, have they given any kind of indication about their position on the plan that seems to be moving forward no matter what?
No secret.
The demolition plan, et cetera. I feel very concerned about that because even in newspapers and so on, it sounds like it's a done deal. And I don't know what the tenor of that meeting was, but did you get some kind of feedback from the elected officials?
Same thing.
So again, I wanna reiterate that there was a presentation that was made by Related to NYCHA at the time.
We don't believe you. We think you're lying, babes. What's your name?
My name is Greg. I'm the co-chair of
Full
Chelsea
name.
Land Use. Greg Morris, co-chair of Chelsea Land Use. There was a meeting that took place. There was a presentation. Presentation is available to this committee.
It's, just for clarity's sake, it's also online. It's on our website, so both presentations
Okay,
are on our
sorry,
website.
thank you for clarifying. The expectation is that presentation will be made at the December meeting of CLU, the Chelsea Land Use. Before that meeting, there'll be a summary from those who were present at that meeting that will be circulated to this group. It's unfortunate that it didn't happen sooner. It's unfortunate that we can't dig into it now, but the
Well, that we're
reality
gonna have
is
to
it's taken more
postpone the December
time
meeting.
to be able to digest that
We don't
particular
want any
meeting
surprises.
and to address the number of issues that came up that we still have questions about. There will continue to be questions. The desire is to make sure that we are clear as to what it was that we want to get from the meeting that takes place when Related and NYCHA appear and walk through their presentation.
The face of a chief.
Greg,
Go ahead.
Greg, so just to kind of beat a dead horse, have the officials, the elected officials expressed an opinion or a position about the proposal that's on the table?
I'm not aware of a communication that's taken place to me as the Chelsea Land Use Co-Chair from the elected officials in response to that question. I'm not aware of any.
So you're,
Okay, all right, because I think we were trying to encourage the elected officials to look at the issues that we have raised and see if they would be moved by them.
Well, I think it would appear that by virtue of the document, the letter that we submitted that had our questions that were discussed at this committee, that was submitted to the elected officials. The elected officials helped to facilitate this conversation that took place with Related and NYCHA. Related and NYCHA then made a presentation. So it's my hope that maybe we could see this as the effort that we made in presenting a letter to the electeds result in a conversation with Related and NYCHA. I don't think at this stage, because we have not had full summary made of that particular meeting, and it hasn't been circulated yet, that we can't dig into it more deeply at this point. But I guess I just want to put it out there to say, we summarized and put together a letter. It triggered a response that resulted in a conversation and a presentation, and that presentation is expected to happen here in December.
the letter was
So that
full
we
of
can all hear that
insults
together.
and you're admitted to being incompetent.
I'll say one last thing, Greg. It's my opinion or suggestion that Community Board 4 leadership have a separate meeting with the elected officials to discuss the serious concerns that Community Board 4 and others have raised with the elected officials. That, I don't know, we're sort of going around in circles with this presentation. I'm not being critical of you, Greg, but I'm just saying that I think we should not be passive and that we should be a little more assertive with the elected officials to see if we can make at least some understanding or dialogue or thinking with them. So that's my suggestion.
That's the truth.
Thank you. That's
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish my new and old business component. So it's done. One more note to make, and then we'll switch over to public session.
Let's do what she said.
Sorry.
Should I make my updates or should we have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
questions?
My apology. Let me finish my last note, and then we will do new and old business, and then we'll go to public session. Okay. My apologies for the length of time this is taking in my own, as I learned to be a good facilitator and moderator in these particular.
You're a bad facilitator.
There's
babe.
one
Don't-
additional note to
don't
make.
joke.
There's one additional note to make outside of the NYCHA conversation, and that is on Friday, November 1st. Members of the land use, the co-chairs of Chelsea Land Use and others sat in on a conversation of briefing by Vanderbilt University. That there is a lease, the General Theological Seminary, forgive me for not having all the details, but there's some work that's going to be taking place at that particular site. It's in the district, and I just wanted you to be advised that they came to us to explain what their plan was and what they were thinking. That gave us the opportunity to react and to respond to some of that. And there's certainly more to come in relation to that particular conversation.
Don't talk to
Other
me
new
like a
old
goy.
business at this point.
I'm not a goy, babes.
Go ahead.
Okay, these are the updates that I mentioned. They have to do with NYCHA. I attended and testified at the October 30th meeting in which the NYCHA board voted to authorize the project's master development agreement. Contrary to what Mike Noble said in our full board meeting, The proposal presented at the meeting was not the as-of-right alternative, but the rezoning alternative that would create 3,500 mixed-income units, only 30% of them affordable. In the meeting, 9 people, myself included, asked NYCHA to abandon its demolition plans or table approval of the master agreement. Democratic Assembly District 75 leader Layla Law-Gizico pointed out that the project had no identified funding source or projected cost, and asked how NYCHA could assess its feasibility or impact without this information, obvious prerequisites for entering into a legal agreement. I pointed out the renovation estimate's complete lack of credibility, to which NYCHA had no response. Only Miguel Acevedo spoke in support of the agreement, which NYCHA voted to approve. NYCHA's Jonathan Gouveia reported at the meeting that design of the first 2 replacement buildings for Fulton Building 11 and the Chelsea Addition building was already underway. That means substantial funds have already been sunk into a demolition-based plan, even as it's still under environmental review and even before NYCHA approved the development agreement. Fulton and Elliott Chelsea residents have reportedly been told that tenants will begin moving out of the 2 buildings in April of next year, 5 months from now, as the first stage of demolition. I'm told this was announced to Fulton tenants, the Fulton Tenants Association at their meeting last Wednesday, which was attended by Eric Boucher and representatives of other elected officials. 2 weeks ago, NYCHA published an article stating that the second oldest housing development in New York, the Williamsburg houses, received a comprehensive packed red renovation for $492 million. The complex has 1,600 apartments. That comes out to $307,000 per unit, only 55% of what Related claims it would cost to renovate Fulton and Elliott Chelsea. This is just the latest evidence that Related's renovation estimate is a lie. The Williamsburg houses were completed in 1937, before lead paint was banned in New York. Their renovation cost included removal of lead paint. These buildings are a decade older and by the same architect as Elliott houses, the oldest part of FEC. 75% or 70% of FEC's buildings are even newer, built in the 1960s after lead paint was banned, which might make their renovation costs less than Williamsburg houses. The $307,000 per unit renovation cost for Williamsburg is in line with a study published last fall by the news outlet The City, which found that NYCHA's 9 packed rad renovations in 2023 ranged from $124,000 to $384,000 per unit, consistently below and often far below the $485,000 per unit cost estimated by NYCHA's physical needs assessments. The article was titled, NYCHA says it needs $485K to repair each apartment, but actual costs come in much lower. NYCHA's 2021 estimate to renovate FEC was $236,000 per unit. First, based on the survey by the city, we could expect the actual renovation cost to be less than that, not almost 2.5 its times as Related claims. Even if FEC cost as much per unit to renovate as the older and lead paint contaminated Williamsburg houses, $307,000 per unit, Related's cost estimate would be over $500 million higher. That's $500 million in real value Related says doesn't exist, and which they must be compensated for with thousands of new rental units. It's also worth noting that the renovation of the Williamsburg houses, a development 80% the size of FEC, took 3 years. Compare that to the 6 to 7 years now estimated for the FEC demolition-based plans. It's just common sense that the fastest way to give the FEC residents decent housing is through renovation, not demolition. You can easily find photos of the renovated Williamsburg houses apartments online. They showcase brand new looking apartments accompanied by resident testimonials. On October 31st, the New York Times published an article on FEC by its architecture critic, Michael Kimmelman. The article makes no mention of the draft scope of work's non-rezoning alternative, exclusively touting the rezoning alternative at its 3,500 added housing units. The piece was accompanied by unflattering photos of the existing FEC buildings, including cherry-picked shots of superficial deterioration. It quotes NYCHA's Jonathan Gouveia as saying that, quote, simply fixing leaky pipes and swapping out old kitchens would ultimately squander hundreds of millions of dollars on buildings beyond repair. The Times doesn't challenge this claim, even though the same article describes the, quote, remarkable results produced by the packed rat renovation of the early 1960s Baychester development in the Bronx, and notes that neighbors living across the street from it in the larger 1950s Edenwald development were so impressed that they petitioned NYCHA for a similar makeup, one which is now underway. It apparently never occurred to the writer to ask why the Fulton Elliott Chelsea developments are beyond repair while these others are being restored. Playing into the FEC development team's hands, the Times says, quote, NYCHA officials stress that a majority of tenants who responded to a survey have endorsed the project, unquote, without noting that the survey was based entirely on a renovation estimate by Related, a private developer with a giant and disqualifying financial interest. By the way, last year's report in the city noted that the actual renovation cost for Edenwald under Pact Red was $384,000 per unit, far below NYCHA's $549,000 estimate based on its own physical needs assessment. The recent New York Times piece gives Miguel Acevedo the last word, quoting him to say that if the buildings aren't replaced, they are, quote, going to end up getting condemned.
Wow.
The city's paper of record is promoting this narrative. Since we last met, we have a new president-elect who has called climate change a hoax and vowed to withdraw from the Paris Accords. We can't change that, so it's more important than ever that we do everything we can for ourselves on a local level. I've mentioned before that the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice is committed to reducing construction-related energy by 50%, along with increasing the city's tree canopy from 22 to 30%, an initiative shared by the Urban Forest Plan sponsored by Eric Botcher. It's worth revisiting the climate impact of the demolition of Fulton Elliott Chelsea. Even if the interiors needed to be fully gutted, in an unlikely and radical worst case, there's no reason to believe their foundations, structural frames, floor slabs, and stairs can't be reused as they are at all other NYCHA renovations. Needlessly replacing them with new ones would be an inconceivable waste of embedded energy, not to mention the associated loss of 370 mature trees. The 2.2 million square foot area of FEC is nearly 80% of an Empire State Building. Imagine the resources and energy required to pull that down and rebuild it, including excavating new foundations, producing new steel and concrete, building it to the construction site, and erecting it. Years worth of extraordinary effort. And the new foundation excavations would be many times that of the Empire State Building. It's a real drill, baby, drill approach. All of it based on Related's implausible and unsubstantiated renovation estimate. A neighbor just told me about a recent conversation with Eric Botcher. When confronted with a lack of proof for Related's renovation estimate, Eric had no answer, but shifted to all the new housing units that would be created. I had a similar experience not long ago with Mark Levine, only he dodged the question about the estimate by bringing up the 1,000 affordable housing units the rezoning alternative would create. I really don't think our electeds care about the actual renovation cost. Even if it's a lie, it supports their agenda, which is much bigger than NYCHA. At a March 20th rally hosted by the borough president on the steps of City Hall about eliminating the residential FAR 12 cap, Eric Botcher argued for building, quote, enough market rate housing to bring down the cost for everyone. He said if we continue killing every effort to increase housing supply, not only are we going to continue the crisis that we have, but the levels of homelessness we see now are going to seem quaint in a few years. The levels of crime, of mental illness, of poverty, of displacement, of gentrification, all of these things are going to continue to get worse. And that's a dark future that I refuse to let happen. The alternative is that we build hundreds and thousands of homes, bring down rents for everyone. Some of these are especially pertinent thoughts in light of this morning's tragedy. One of the victims was killed on a Fulton Houses block directly across the street from my home. but upzoning Chelsea or demolishing Fulton Elliott Chelsea to solve the city's housing and mental illness problem is a conversation we should have on its own merits. It's not a reality we should back into on the basis of a lie our electeds knowingly and dishonorably perpetuate. In line with Eric's thinking, the NYCHA plan has morphed into one that aims to solve New York's housing crisis by building more market rate housing, like City of Yes for Housing Opportunity. The draft scope of work says the proposal would facilitate the construction of both affordable and market rate housing units to, quote, address the critical shortage of housing in general in New York City. I worry that any non-demolition option will now automatically be disqualified because it won't support this newly enshrined goal, which was nowhere in the original RFP related one. So where do we go from here? There's no point in waiting for substantiation of related's estimate. It never existed and it never will, because it couldn't possibly in a rational universe. The buildings will be demolished while we wait for a non-existent answer. I think we may need to take a hard stand against demolition. I love Betty's idea of calling for a meeting directly between us and the electeds without NYCHA in the room.
Yes.
And I'd like to make a motion for that.
We matter.
Everybody.
I didn't hear the motion. But
The motion is for a letter to go out to our electeds calling for a meeting directly between us and them without the development team in the room.
I second it.
With the public and.
Yeah, definitely.
all those in
How
favor?
about select-
Hold on. Sorry. Let Jesse do the count. Sorry, Jess. Sorry.
If there are objections, might short circuit, but yeah,
Okay, let's do it.
objections.
All those in favor?
You can see who's not a friend of people, this guy here.
Brad, do you have your hand up? Is that a yes or?
That's a no.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike,
friend.
do you have your hand? I'm assuming.
you.
We didn't do
You're not
opposed yet,
responding?
Just to approve.
Oh, yeah, use P and A. All right, got it.
Any
There's two enemies.
opposed? Any in opposition?
Opposed?
Wonder where they live.
The one
Oh, Brad, your hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any abstentions?
Abstention.
Oh, really? This
One
guy here?
opposed.
P&E.
P&E.
Hector.
Present, not eligible.
It's the highest, huh? And he's working for the community board. What a fool. He admits it.
Okay,
Motion passes.
I look forward to receiving that, so I can work with the.
You guys couldn't play
co-chair
dirty,
to be
I'm
able to get that
sorry.
letter out.
Can you share that data?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be beneficial.
I'll
to
send
be
it.
able to-
Because
Yeah, it's gotta go, yeah, so that's why we're asking.
He's talking about.
I'm not
Oh,
talking
the
about the
diatribe.
motion, talking about just delivered.
You know what?
Full of a lot of information, took some of it in, but I'm old fashioned, I like to print it out, and have it in front of me.
And
Okay?
if I could just jump in for a second to say, part of the reason why, and I'll just pause here for a second.
Thank you.
Part of the reason why I paused there and said to Dave that I wanted to make sure that you shared that with the co-chair was to make sure that the committee received that.
It's okay, if I send it to the co-chairs, will you distribute it to everyone else?
I'm gonna start, we're gonna start with the committee and we'll work from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Where's your apartment? Where's your home
Thank
located?
you.
What's your address?
We are, other old new business from committee members
Just a quick,
online. Oh, go ahead.
just a quick note. You talked about Kimmelman's article, and I know Kimmelman actually personally. I wrote a letter to him.
Can you hear, speak up a
Can
little
you hear
bit?
me? Okay. I know Kimmelman personally. I read the article. I wrote to him. I spoke to him over the phone. I sent a letter to New York Times about sort of a lot of omissions that you just described. And I think that's essentially true because he is writing based on what he's been fed. That was his answer. He said, I am not exactly an expert on housing, nor am I an expert on NYCHA. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. The New York Times does write what it writes based on what it gathers from who it gathers from. So you have to remember that there's nothing unbiased about it, though it is New York Times, and I respect New York Times quite a lot. Second thing, Williamsburg houses in 2003, I actually went to HUD and made a presentation, and we got Williamsburg houses landmarked. It's a landmark housing project. They cannot knock it down. So
We're
what I'm
gonna.
trying to make a point about is the cost of actually fixing up that place is much higher typically compared to something like Fulton or Chelsea Elliott, because the requirements are much more stringent in terms of meeting. And it's a very beautifully designed projects. If you actually go into it clearly and what it's quite well done. I mean, it's a project with corner windows. So you can imagine it's like Frank Lloyd Wright, American sort of dream come true, NYCHA project, right? So again, to sort of strengthen the point that David was making, the whole issue about how much this project's rehabilitation is going to cost is a huge suspect. It's not something that we can easily buy. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
It's a theft, it's an attempt.
Any
to
old or
steal
new
people's
business from
property.
committee members? Any
It's a
committee members
Nakba,
want to-
actually, it's literally a Nakba.
On that note,
Going over
It's in
stuff.
public.
on that
Yeah,
note, we're gonna
I
move to
mean-
public session.
What I'm
Nakba.
saying to you, I can't speak about what you've already talked about. The vote y'all just took, that's where I wanna go. So if you keep going on over other stuff, I'm not here for the other stuff. I'm here for what y'all just voted on. I come from Fulton Houses. My name is Deidre Wright, and I invite
Deidre,
all
you're actually
y'all
first-
to
Deidre,
come to
you're-
my house.
Deidre, you're the first one on the, I'm moving to public session right now,
My back is killing me, and I'm about to leave.
and I'm gonna let you do it right there, so you don't have to come up. Do it right there. Can we move the camera? We're gonna move the camera so we can see you right where you are, because it's gotta be on camera. So Deidre, just gonna let Jesse get the camera, because it's gotta be recorded. We're in public session right now. Public session is 2 minutes.
That's it. That's all I need.
So he's just gonna move the camera so he can see you, and you can start from here. I'll set the timer when he's ready, okay? And you got it's Deidre, then Paul, then Salinas. Those are my 1, 2,
He
3.
just wanna.
What about-
I'm just-
It's on that list too.
Alright.
I know, I'm going 3 at a time. I'm doing the
Okay.
first 3. Deidre,
Alright.
Paul, please. Okay, are you ready?
Ready?
Go ahead, yep. Paul.
My name is Deidre Wright. I live in Fulton Houses, okay? Y'all are all welcome to come to my house. My walls are smooth. I have no initial issues. All of that being said, the proposals of related and NYCHA, you see, not a lot of us come to this meeting for different reasons. Okay, so until y'all come at us individually, for those that are on a lease, have a lease and all of that, this is gonna always be a problem. Okay, because everybody is not gonna come. I got older ladies on my floor. It's nothing but older ladies. I'm one of the youngest ones on my floor. So they're not gonna come to this meeting, especially where it's at. You understand what I'm saying? But I try to inform them about what meeting I go to. I haven't been to a NYCHA meeting with the related in the room. I haven't been to that in weeks. Okay, I already know that this is a bait and switch, because just before we came to this meeting tonight, we got something that was saying something about a master plan. That's not the lingo that they was using in the beginning. So I don't even know what that means. You understand what I'm saying? Communication is the key to going forward. And I invite y'all to come to my house to see how well maintained my apartment is.
Gorgeous.
When I call, if I have a repair and I call, they come and they fix it. The only thing that's wrong with my apartment is the suds back up in my sink. And that was because in 2000, they gave us smaller pipes. Okay? You can't put a Band-Aid on a gunshot. We're not as old as Chelsea. Okay? I've been there 32 years, straight from the streets. No shelters, nothing. Okay? So thank y'all for voting the way y'all voted tonight, because I'm gonna fight this to the death. I was hoping that this would be my
Amen.
last apartment until I die. I don't have time to be fighting my way to just have a roof over my head. Thank you all for listening. My back is killing me. Paul, you just wanna say,
Bravo. Thank you for coming.
Paul,
Thank you for showing
Deidre,
up.
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
he just
Feel
wanna say
better.
one thing.
This guy wants to steal your house.
Floor is yours, Paul. Go ahead.
Steal your house.
Paul, and tell them.
Floor is yours. We're in public session. You've got your 2 minutes. Your 2 minutes have started. Go ahead.
Yes.
Let the man talk.
Begins to
Yeah, to harass you. You do
Okay,
it all the time.
Joe, it's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're writing me now. I'm not for the hours names.
Did y'all hear what he said?
To come here. To
He
say
said he's
anything
not
with,
for the demolition.
I agree. I'm not that much.
All right, Paul, I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Salinas, you can come up if you want. You can, actually, the camera's right there. Stay right there. Stay right there. Stay right there. When you're ready. You ready?
Yes, an agreement of a master development does not mean that demolition is official. We have no evidence that HUD accepted a section 18 application. Without approval from the federal government, our homes cannot be demolished. The agreement does not change the fact that 949 residents oppose this senseless plan. We will always stand firm against demolition. They are prepping everyone to believe it's a done deal. When the agreement was approved, the next day, all sorts of media outlets made announcements. And now many are convinced it's going to happen. Essence had a secret meeting with Chelsea Addition. They are being prepped for phase 1 of demolition. They've been assured it's official and told the tenants that the process of emptying the building starts in April. Chelsea Addition are the only ones in Elliott Chelsea who have been informed of this plan. There have been no other meetings for the rest of the campus. However, in Fulton, a TA meeting was held with Essence and Eric Botcher as guests. They were all leading the tenants on and gave the implication that it's a done deal and to not believe anyone else. Our petitions are being ignored. No one has responded to us. They have their blinders on and are moving along as if we did not have a press conference, as if they did not receive emails and letters, and as if we are non-existent. In the US of A, a petition has validity. A copy was sent to the CB4 office. We need help. Please, someone vouch for us. Demolition of a thriving community would be a crime. It's too damaging to move along with this plan. Mark Levine told us that we need more affordable housing in Chelsea, but he's not holding related companies accountable for not following through on the Hudson Yard proposal promises. Phase 1 was to be an affordable housing project only, and phase 2 only promised affordable housing, also promised affordable housing. This housing project, oh, I'm sorry. This can, I guess I'm done.
Last one. Go ahead.
This was promised on a plot of land that was empty. How can anyone believe anything that they say? How is it that Related is being rewarded with our NYCHA public land filled with lives and homes? Please stop enabling them. Do not let them take away our homes and ruin our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Jackie, Alexa, Renee, next 3. Jackie, when you're ready, just let me know.
Yeah.
You can stay
Is
there.
it okay? You're okay right there. If you're comfortable there, that's fine.
Oh, I'm here for 2 things. One
Ready?
is,
ahead.
yes, I heard that one Oak was open. Now, that club was notorious back then. That's like a Piff Diddy thing. Please do not open that club again, because there was a lot of fights. I couldn't park my car without showing an ID, and sometimes they didn't want to allow us to even go that block, like if they owned the whole block. Number 2, yes, we have the petition. People, I mean, we're trying to get people out as much as we can. A lot of them are afraid to come out, and please, we have to stop this demolition. It's gonna destroy community. We belong there too. We don't bother nobody. And I love my community, and I'm gonna fight it till the end.
Jackie's running for Pence.
Association.
Against Miguel Acevedo.
I have Alexa up next.
Hi, my name is Alexa, and I always come and I always say the same thing. Section 9, I want the HR 307, which is a $70 billion bill that Nydia Velasquez had, that Nadler had approved on Twitter, and the elected officials, Botcher and everybody, they ignore it. You know, that means that they don't want us to deal with HUD, and they want a cash grab the money for them, because they're gonna be making incentive on it. And we should be the ones who make the decisions, because that's what that was told to us from the beginning, that we decide what we do with our apartments. And there were votes that, most of the votes were that we needed to be with Section 9. And I'm glad that you guys are voting, and I'm glad that the ballot on the vote came out good, that you guys have the right to choose, you know, and I pray, and I don't want to go homeless. or I don't want anybody to go homeless, because in this city, we have too many homelesses. You walk down,
Sorry.
you find a homeless, and it's sad. It's sad, because it's been going on for years and years and years on the regular tenants, that people get been thrown out of their apartments, and now it's NYCHA that they're trying to do to us and throw us out in the streets. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Renee,
Okay, so we come.
and then we have one person online too. Right?
Yep.
We'll do that next, and then we'll finish up in the room. Okay, I just want to make.
And then
sure.
I'm.
We've got Lydia and then Cece. Go ahead. Renee, when you're ready.
Okay. Despite assurances in prior meetings that this was only a proposal, representatives from Essent Development and related companies, along with Jonathan Gavaya, NYCHA's VP of Real Estate, at the NYCHA's board meeting, now present this plan as inevitable. Mr. Gavaya stated that the bridge plan will be implemented until all NYCHA replacement buildings are construction. The reality being described now is troubling. NYCHA and its partners continue to downplay displacement concerns by claiming that 94% of residents will remain in their households. However, this misrepresents the situation. This will not be NYCHA replacement buildings, but rather project-based Section 8 housing, fundamentally altering the nature of public housing. For the remaining 6%, approximately 120 households, it is said they will be relocated within their home campus. Yet if appropriately sized apartments are unavailable on site, these residents will be moving to privately managed buildings within the PAC partner network, or potentially to other NYCHA developments. This will exacerbate the housing crisis. They'll be in apartments that could be rented to others, and there is a problem: is this even legal? This is especially concerning for residents of Chelsea Addition, a newer building occupied by seniors. How can they return to a building that doesn't exist? Okay. We are told the mixed income buildings plan for the site will fund the project-based Section 8 housing. Further, NYCHA will lease the land for 99 years under a long-term ground lease. However, clarity is lacking on critical points. How will the value of land where these mixed income buildings will stand be used as a funding source? How does NYCHA ensure that this arrangement benefits the residents and community rather than prioritizing developers' profits? Lack of transparency. Meetings continue to be held in secret with little effort to involve or inform the wider community. The move-out date is being circulated as April 2025. Yet residents have not been adequately engaged in decision-making. Freedom of information law requests for more transparency have gone unheeded.
Let's do online, and then it's Lydia and Cece. Thank you, Jess.
Jacob Conway.
Jacob.
Hello, sorry. Was trying to figure out how to get it to work. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, when you're ready, go ahead. 2 minutes.
Great. I'm gonna set a timer as well. Thank you for having me, everyone. My name is Jacob Conway. I live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I joined today because my previous landlord was called Simply Better Apartment Homes. They are owned by a related company. They owned my building, the adjacent building that touches ours, and then 2 across the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. But related company is one of the largest landlords in New York. They own countless properties, so they own more throughout the city and Brooklyn. I moved in 3 years ago, was approached by some neighbors who had lease renewals coming up. Their leases were going to get increased. We discovered that Related or Simply Better had illegally destabilized all of our apartments when they bought the building back in 2015. We have tenants in all 4 buildings who have lived here for 30 years at least, raised their families here. They're still on rent stabilized leases. We all requested our rent histories and found and annotated them and did the math and discovered that there's no way they legally could have destabilized all of our apartments. There were no reported renovations, nothing like that. We've shown it to several lawyers. They say we have a good case. That's our situation. But on that note, they've ignored tenants who have been in rent stabilized units for years. We have mothers with children who have leaking water from ceilings above, cockroaches, mice, boilers, excuse me, that constantly go out, outlets that blow. Their management of these buildings was horrendous. And then when we tried to engage in good faith conversations with them, they ignored us. They repeatedly ignored us. They told us that we were wrong and that our apartments weren't supposed to be rent stabilized. My lease specifically, they tried to increase by 40% when my lease was up. We have heard from other tenants who live in similar buildings that they think this happened to them. We have a strong tenants association, and they tried to take one of us to court as an intimidation tactic. And when we showed up to court prepared to argue against them for the legal restabilization of our buildings, they dropped the case in court. Our theory is because they knew that if we went in front of a judge, they would have been proven wrong. So horrible experience with them. They're not someone you want to have running your buildings. They're not someone you can trust. They're not someone that should be responsible for rehabilitating or playing any part in providing safe housing for people in Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea.
Thank you for the testimony.
Lydia,
Of course.
Heather, and Joe.
I'm Lydia Andre. I'm from the Chelsea Neighbors Coalition. We're working with the FEC tenants. And I want to pick up on something Betty said, that we need to hold our elected officials accountable. They are participating in this discourse that this is a done deal, that this is all about affordable housing, and that this is tenant-led. Well, Jesse, you just are in receipt of a petition that has 950 signatures of FEC tenants who are against demolition, more than the number of signatures or votes on the quote, NYCHA petition that was organized by Related. So we need to fight back on the discourse that this is A, tenant-led, B, that it's about affordable housing. This is an extraction move. They're going to extract the value of the land, and NYCHA is going to use that throughout the city. Whether you think that's good or bad, we deserve the real story, and we need to ask our elected officials, who are they representing in this? They're not representing Greater Chelsea. They're not representing the FEC tenants. They're not representing the people who are here now, and that is unacceptable. And we appreciate and value the participation of the Land Use Committee and the CB4 in helping us hold them accountable. I really hope you hold that meeting.
Related golden visa investors are,
You ready? You have 2 minutes, and there's someone ready to speak out.
okay. Hang on. Wait. You record. Yeah. You're on my phone. Okay. Well. I haven't started yet, so. Hang on, let me turn this around. Somehow. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow residents and concerned citizens of New York City, I stand before you today as the voice of 84% of the residents in the Elliott, Chelsea, and Fulton houses. People who have had enough of the corruption, the lies, and the relentless attacks on our homes and our futures. We are united in our fierce opposition to Congressman Jerry Nadler's treacherous plan to demolish the homes of American citizens in favor of luxury developments that will benefit foreign investors and golden visa holders. This isn't just an attack on our homes. It's an attack on everything we stand for as a community, and a nation. For the past 3 years, we've endured a sustained organized campaign of gang stalking, harassment, intimidation, and abuse. And the scale of the operation is staggering. Over 50,000 documented instances of gang stalking, vandalism, and physical assault. Our streets, our property, and our very dignity have been violated. This is not just random crime. This is coordinated effort by those who should be protecting us, but instead they're perpetrating these crimes against us. Let us be clear about who is behind this. Jesse Bodine, a key figure, has used his position to target innocent residents engaged in gang stalking and physical threats. His actions aren't just misconduct, they're criminal, and the NYPD PSA4 has failed to investigate this despite the charges against him. We've returned to them for help. We've been ignored. Acevedo, the president of our tenant association, needs to be removed. His role in this conspiracy charged with physical assaults and coordinated gang stalking cannot be overlooked. What's worse, we have witnessed political interference at the highest city level. Eric Botcher, Mark Levine, and others infiltrating our tenant association. I need another minute, please. Manipulating our leadership, violating our bylaws, and using divide and conquer tactics to silence us. They work to destroy our unity and disrupt our collective power. But here's the truth. We are keeping our homes and campuses. We are thriving, not just surviving. We have weathered the storm with strength and resilience, and we are more unified than ever. Our historic homes and campuses stand strong, and we will protect them with everything we've got. Now we turn to the question, where is the FBI? Are they asleep at the wheel? Are they on vacation? The corruption is deep and the stakes couldn't be higher. This is political racketeering with intense gang stalking and international conspiracy orchestrated by Jerry Nadler and Stephen Ross and their corrupt allies. This guy right here, for example. They are using our homes, our families as pawns in their treasonous game. We demand action. We demand the FBI to stand up, investigate the gang stalking, the racketeering, and political corruption. That's been allowed to fester. The evidence is overwhelming. The time for inaction is over. We will not rest until justice is served, until the corrupt forces behind the scheme are held accountable and executed. Let's do this. Let's fight forward. Thank you.
Thank I hear you on that. Here, Joe, when you're ready, let me know.
Yeah, sure. So first, to the committee, the board wrote in July and asked for a meeting just with the electeds. So you're reiterating the same request, and it was never able to be scheduled. And instead, the meeting we had was with the electeds, NYCHA, and related. So asking for that request again is good. Everyone should know all of our electeds have supported this demolition plan. That's where we are today, and that's where it's been for a long time.
Evidence.
Just facts. We walked into a meeting on a Monday, and we were informed in that meeting that the NYCHA board would be voting on a Wednesday. That was quite of a shock to those of us who were part of this discussion. We didn't expect that at all. Related led the meeting. I will tell you that meeting of the Chelsea NYCHA working group, electeds, and NYCHA was more productive as Related led a meeting. Actually, we asked questions and we got answers.
But Joe signed up. You didn't call his name.
You should look forward to getting that information from the overall group, right? The main thing that we learned in our last meeting, we had a huge issue about interim repairs, and they were gonna do, Related would do 30%, NYCHA would do 70% for the next 10 years. The announcement at this meeting was that there would be 70% of the repairs done by Related and NYCHA 30%. That was a big change. We actually saw, David, for the first time, a very slimmed down version of some financing. We asked for much more detail. It was the first time we even saw that. But on the screen, actual thing. I want to note that David is correct. There is no possible way that the renovation costs per apartment have any basis in reality. I speak to you as a 44-year practitioner of renovation and
you're lying right to our face. We hate you for it.
It does not whatsoever.
We gave you without interruption. Please let Joe finish.
He's lying now. He's lying right to me.
There is the cost per unit has no reality factor whatsoever. Our electeds, and I've talked to all of them, as all you folks have talked to them, been seduced by the idea that there will be more affordable housing built through demolition. You are right. That is the way we have to deal with this. We must engage with it.
No, no.
Gotcha. Well,
no.
I think the real thing here is that we
Joe,
are starting to work again on this. And that one commitment that Greg didn't mention was that Related did say they would convene a very slimmed down working group to start meeting and talking about this.
We want to
which will include
Related
all stakeholders, not just from before.
Thank you.
No,
Community at large.
we're done with dealing with Related.
I asked what the nature of the back and forth between the electeds and the community board members was in the meeting.
We were not there to question our electeds. We were there to get a report from NYCHA or Related, and we got that information. That's all.
So the further meeting that we're now talking
Very
about.
important.
Back and forth.
On that note, we have finished public session. We finished our agenda items.
So you're shameless. You're shameless, babes.
All those in favor? Thank you very much, everybody.
Welcome.
Weird and shameless.
It's just.
Excellent.
Just